Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. And this morning we have got the very lovely James on and speaking about fear. So it's going to be a really, really good morning this morning. I am absolutely sure of it. So I'm just going to, without further ado, pull James into the conversation. What way are we going? This way, James? There you go. No, it's not working. There you go.
I get a sore neck every time you do that. You need to stop pulling in that way. How are we, Miss Stevie?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's lovely to be back. I'm honestly, I'm not saying I'm disappointed. I'm just sad. I'm sad that this is our last Soul Man and Friends. Until something bigger and better happens, then I'm absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, I think this is a week of lasts. Well, it's not a week of lasts, but it's all of our guests who are regulars. That's their last week this week. So next week we're having a bit of a change up. We're doing different things next week, which will still be good. But obviously, all you hairdressing folk have to go back to work, and all you therapist folk have to go back to work that are able to see face-to-face clients. I'm so bloody jealous.
Do you know, I am honestly so excited. I really am so excited. And then there's like part of me that is completely shitting a brick. You know, I am like terrified beyond belief. And I think that was why I wanted to have this wee topic today, because it is all fear. And it's, you know, last week we spoke about more of a serious note about living in that suffering and going back and giving up that suffering and experience what the pain is all around you. In the last I'd say maybe 10 days, the amount of people that have messaged me and says, James, I'm terrified. I can't cope. I don't know how I'm coping. And that was actually, somebody said to me, I don't know how I'm coping. And I thought, that's because we're designed to cope. We're designed to get through this. You know, the universe doesn't hand us anything that we're not supposed to be, or we can't cope with. We're not designed to be capable to get through. And I think I often sit and I'll ask myself these questions. You know, I do the same when I come on this. And a lot of the time, the conversation that I'm having with you is sometimes the pep talk that I need myself. Because as much as you're teaching things and as much as you're implementing things, well, for instance, you get this, Stephen. Monday, Kenny took 2 weeks off there for his birthday. And Monday we went back to the gym and I was blowing out my rear end on Monday night and I was like, sweat was pouring off me and I was like, how is this so hard? Like, I'm dying here. I'm absolutely dying. And it was just because I hadn't trained. There was nothing. I wasn't unfit. You know, my lung capacity was still capable and able to do what I've been doing 2 weeks, but I just hadn't done it for 2 weeks. So sometimes when you're in the position of talking about it, but you're maybe not always implementing it. So when I, you know, come on and have these conversations, please don't think that I'm just coming from a place of I'm talking about it or it comes naturally. It doesn't. It takes work. But what I realised was the state of all that fear of failure, fear of success, fear of rejection, just the fear, just anything that's doubt. That's not me. That's not the real me. The real me is this one. The real me is this excited person, happy, wants to engage with everybody, really excited about the future, but really present in the moment. All of those other states, they're always going to be there. But it's my job to go, right, that's not who I am. That's just my thought. That's just my relationship with that thought. And thought is just always happening to me. But I'm the observer of it. And I can decide to sit back in that thought and, you know, allow that emotional state, because that's all it is. Fear is just an emotional state. Depression is just an emotional state. Happiness and joy is just an emotional state. The difference is where you choose to put your focus on that emotional state. And when we live in that fear, where I think it's maybe not fear, it's maybe like excitement, nervousness, and trepidation, all of those things. And then we then start to manifest them and cultivate them within our minds. And that's when we start to shape that fear-based emotional state. Mm-hmm. And all your emotional state is doing at any point, no matter what it is, it's just making you alert. It's making you alert of your environment. It's making you alert of how you're feeling. It's making you alert to, this is how I respond in this situation. And I think, you know, these neural pathways, these neural associations that we are constantly making, because something in the past was frightening, we then link everything that's challenging, everything that's out with our parameters of our maps that I keep talking about. Your brain just goes, okay, fight or flight, need to scan it for what fear, what emotional states needed to get me through this. And then your brain just goes, it's kind of like that time you were on a roller coaster and you were absolutely shitting it. You're only getting back to your job. You'd probably been on a roller coaster before, but it didn't make it any less fearful. So this is what we're doing next week. And let me tell you, I'm living in an emotional state, but my emotional state is still happiness and joy, but I'm having thoughts of fear. And those thoughts of fear are not, absolutely not in the space that I live in now. But I'm just aware of them. I'm just aware of them.
I think everybody's feeling like that though, James, aren't they? You know, like you've said that you've had loads of messages, but equally I've spoke to loads of people as well that have said, oh my God, I'm scared. I'm scared to go back. I'm scared. And I'm like, you're not going back.
We're moving forward.
Back. We're going into something new. It's not going to be the same. Nothing's going to be the same.
Absolutely. And we can alter that new way. So you're not going back, because I guarantee that, I know I was, 70, 80, maybe even 90% of people were relatively unhappy in that, going back to that place. If you take yourself back to there and you now look at how far you've came forward, it's a completely unrelated state of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're at now and going back into that situation is not going to be the same. It's absolutely not going to be the same. But if you continually link that previous experience, that previous state that you were in, and you're choosing that over this, you're choosing that over the time to recreate and live in a space without fear, live in a space without judgment, without worry, without all of these things, we've all expanded our mindset. Well, the majority of us have expanded our mindset. We've taken on new job roles, we've taken on new roles in our relationships, in our friendships, with our family. Some people have become really creative, some people have become DIYers. They're all skills that we didn't know that we actually had. I never thought I was, when my mum and dad, when we at the start, I was up every morning. They do everything for me, Stephen, and they have done for everything. My mum and dad used to come round and get my washing out of my ensuite and take it round to theirs, and I would come home at night and my clothes were folded and ironed. I was like, this is great. There must be somebody living in the cupboards. But then last year that had to flip, because I put them totally ahead of, they were far greater than my own needs. So for me, looking after them was primary focus for me. And of course, my emotional state at that point was uncertainty. It was fear. But that uncertainty and that fear was the driver for me to act upon it. That created enough leverage for me that I had to take action. So I went shopping for them. I went round, I helped them do whatever they needed in the garden because the weather was nice. I picked up, my mum and dad, as I've said to you before, are so good. They're only in their 70s. And I shouldn't say they're so good for their age, because my dad's like, oh, I'm only 21. I only feel 21 in my head. And that, that is a great state to be in, because it is a state. But I started doing things because I was so frightened of them getting into Tesco, going to Marks and Spencer's, doing their food shopping. So I put their needs ahead of mine. And then I thought, we're all selfless when we need to be. Yeah. But we just don't see it. We don't see it. And actually, by putting other people's needs in front of you, we're always frightened of, what if we're rejected? What if we get into that state where somebody says, I don't need you? And we're all looking for a primary need in life. We're all looking for who are you? What's your identity? And all of our identities shifted last year. So I think if you can look at the past year, how you have grown, and you might not feel as if you have, but if you really sit in that space and look at it and go, well, who was I last year? And then who have I became over this lockdown? What skills have I gained? What knowledge and insight have I gained? What foresight have I gained to who I could be in the future? And you now go into this new state next week or whenever you return to work. Because for some, you might not be returning to work, and this working from home might be the new normal for you. Go, well, I've been able to be diverse in how I speak to people and how I work with people, because I don't have that one-to-one connection. I've showed my resilience to how I can get up every day, still within the one space and work within the parameters of my four walls. I can connect with people that are the other side of the world, or the other side of a phone call that I never thought I could. Because a lot of people now, ironically enough, are on their mobile phones all day, but hate speaking on their mobile phones.
I know. Crazy.
Isn't it? It's really, I see it all the time, and actually I do it sometimes as well. I'll see a mobile phone and I'm like, who's that phoning me? Well, I'm not answering that. But see, if my house phone went, I wouldn't think twice about picking up the phone and going, hello, I don't know who it is. But when we see that visual recall, we think, oh shit, that was a debt collector that phoned me from an 0800 number the last time, so I'm not going to answer that. So therefore we reject, and then we listen to the voicemail. So it's like, if you don't act within that moment, you think you've got a wee bit more control over it, but you don't. You've got less control over it. Because if that's something that you then go, oh damn, I was waiting for that phone call. Oh, I didn't know they were going to phone me for that number. Now I need to phone them and it's really awkward and I need to make up a lie because we all make up lies. So sorry, I meant to text you, but I forgot to hit send. We've all done it. Do you know what I mean? We're all doing it. Rather than just taking that action in the moment. And all it is just fear of failure, fear of success, and fear of rejection. Everything ties back to those three things.
What happens? So I'm gonna throw a curveball at you, right? Because see what you just said to me is really alien. Because I don't do that.
Of course you don't. Every week you just throw a curveball at everything I say.
Sorry. So if I see the number, I'll answer, and I have a sometimes really awkward conversation. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I forgot. Or somebody texts me and says, why did you not get back to me? I forgot, or I didn't want to because I didn't know what to say to you. So what happens when you're in that state where you're too honest?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think actually that's a state that we all need, Stephen, because that's sitting in the space of being uncomfortable. And when you're in a situation that you can't just be honest, it's a state of fear because you're worried about what the other person will say. You're worried about what the repercussions will be. You're worried that if I lie here and I get caught out, it's going to be worse. And most of us end up doing that. They end up lying about the situation, and you always get caught out. It always gets found out. And fear is just false evidence appearing real. So you're telling yourself something, but you're not engaged. The nuances that are your body, your voice, all of these things are all coming with the inflections in your voice. If you lie and you're good at understanding what people are saying and you're using NLP principles and stuff now, what I realise is you give yourself away the minute you open your mouth.
Yeah.
Because if somebody knows you, it's so true. You would come on the phone to me to say, James, I am so sorry, I forgot. I knew that would be the truth. If you come on and say, oh, James, and you started explaining too much, I would know you're delving into far too much detail here. I go, that's no Stephen. That's not how he would come across.
It's fascinating though, because see when people say things to me, I'm like, you're bullshitting. And I will say to them, I'll be like, that's not the truth, is it? And they're
like, because you can't remember a lie. If you're going to lie, at least lie convincingly. If you're going to lie, at least try and recall a memory and you go, well, I was in here and I done this and I says that. Don't try and make shit up on the spot, because then when you need to then recall it, it's not there. It's like reading a book and you get to the end of the paragraph and you go, I don't know what that last paragraph said. That's what a lie is.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is trying to create false evidence that appears real. And it's not real. It's absolutely not, 100% not real. So I think when we're getting into this next, that's a good thing to actually touch on this even. I think if we're getting into this next stage, don't lie to yourself. Don't tell yourself the story, because all you're doing right now about this fear-based emotional state that you're living in, you're just telling yourself a story that you can't cope, you want to go back to how life used to be, or you don't want to leave your partner. Be honest with those things, because for me, I really enjoy being home. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy the time to do things like this, to connect with people in a different way. Now, I know when I go back to the salon, I'll have other ways of connecting, and that really excites me. Because one thing I love is chatting to folk. I really enjoy that connection one-to-one, and I do really miss the physical connection. We've spoken about it so many times, not even on these calls, but just in chat. We enjoy the physical connection, giving somebody a hug, and and I know we won't be able to do those things straight away, but yeah, for me, I'm very fortunate. I'm a tactile person. I'm a kinesthetic, so I can get my hands on people, and it's like, I don't know, there's a wee force field with me when I go back to the salon that allows me to just touch people. I'm like, yeah, look at your face. But if we stop, if we really give into those lies, and we just say, all it is I'm frightened. All it is I'm frightened of succeeding, because again, the flip side of that is a lot of people were highly, highly successful, highly motivated, highly driven prior to lockdown, and their lives have changed. And it's now going into this new stage of going, what if I'm not as good as what I used to be? What if I'm not as successful as what I once was? Just the same. It's all fear-based. And, that fear again comes from, what if people just reject me? What if I reject myself? What if I go back into this and go, I don't want to do this anymore? How do I keep the roof over my head? How do I pay for my car? How do I keep my wife? All of these things are just all about rejection, but it's all coming from within. And it's all a story that you're telling yourself. It's all made up.
Yeah. See what you're saying about the whole honesty thing as well. I want to touch more on that, right? Because I think it's such a big thing that everybody should do moving forward. People don't like you being honest. No. That's what I've certainly found in my time. So I'm always honest, and people don't like it. They say that they like you to be honest, but when you are honest and when you say things, they're like, I don't like this. But telling the truth feels uncomfortable. Being honest, it feels uncomfortable. But if when you do that, when you're really honest and when you're always honest, even though it feels uncomfortable, I go to sleep at night and I end every day knowing that I've done the right thing, knowing that I've said the right thing. And I think that, for everybody going back into society, being honest with yourself and facing the things that feel uncomfortable, being like telling the truth, doing all these things, it makes a big difference to your overall well-being. Would you agree?
100%. I think then you're living by your own rules. I think, and a lot of people have to ask themselves the question is, whose rules am I living by? Because if you're being truly honest and somebody finds discomfort in your honesty, well, you're probably not living by your own values and beliefs. You're very true to your values and beliefs. You're as honest as the day is long, and I love that about you. And I used to tell a lot of wee white lies because I was always time poor. Mm-hmm. So for me being time poor, I always felt as if I had to justify that. And I don't have to justify that to anybody. I turn up at exactly when I'm meant to turn up in life. I will be here when I'm meant to be here. I don't arrive late and I don't arrive early. I arrive when I'm supposed to be because life happens. And that's out with our control. And I think there's only two things. There's only two things. There's only the one certainty that we put on is that time is always here. Time is only here when we're here. And when we're not here, time is of absolute no relevance. So if you can get out the mindset of feeling like, am I living by my true values? Because if you're not, then that's when you're going to start lying. I think, personally, for me, I think that's when people want to lie because they feel that that's what the other person wants to hear. And it's not true. It's not true. Because I guarantee that you're sitting in the house and you're panicking about going, I should have texted Stephen. Oh, why did I say that? Oh my God, I can't believe I told him that. Stephen's forgot about it. Stephen's not sitting in the house going, I can't believe she told me that. I can't believe he said that to me. Oh my God, he messaged me. Stephen doesn't care. It's only you that's care. There's a great saying, and it's a coward dies 1,000 deaths. A hero only dies once.
Yeah.
Because the fear of the truth, the fear of the failure, the fear of all of these things is all lived in your head over and over and over. But if you just turn up and you just are honest with it, yeah, you might die in that moment, but you move on from it very quickly. We focus on. There was a great video I seen the other day, and it was this doctor, not a doctor, sorry, a teacher. He's got a big kind of plastic container. If I get it, I'll tag it in here, or I'll post it on my Facebook page. He gets this big plastic container, and he puts golf balls in it. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah. So, baseballs, golf balls, sand, all that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So you put all the golf. It puts all the golf balls in, and that represents like your family, your partner, your loved ones, all of these things. Then it puts all the coffee beans in, and all the coffee beans are. Well, actually, sorry, I jumped ahead there. The golf balls in the jar. He asks, "Is this jar full?" And everybody says yes. And then he gets the coffee beans, and he pours all. And I'm sure loads of people have already seen it. Pours all the coffee beans in, and that represents your car, your job, money, all of these things. And he asks, "Is the jar now full?" And everybody says yes. And he gets this big bucket of sand, and he pours all the sand in. And then he asks, "Is this full?" Well, the sand is all the other shite. The sand is all the shite that you cannot control. And then he gets 2 beers, and he pours the 2 beers in, and somebody says, "What does the beers represent?" It meant because when you're living your life, there's always time for 2 beers. And I thought, that is what life is. Yeah. We focus on the shite, we focus on the sand, and the sand doesn't, make us look after our parents, our loved ones. It doesn't give us the time back that we lose from that. So give up that focusing on the sand and realise that there's plenty of space in your jar. Your jar can be overflowing with sand, but the important things are still the biggest things in your life that need that time investment, that need that honesty and that truth. I think that's really where it comes from. There's so many things I wish I would have said a long time ago, but I've now got the opportunity to say them right now and do them right now. So don't dwell on that what if. And admittedly, a lot of people are not going to have the opportunity to do or say to loved ones that are no longer with us. And that's maybe what this year has taught us. Today's not guaranteed. Tomorrow's not guaranteed, but today is. And if you're here, and even if you are in that position of not being able to say it to the person, just say it out loud. Give yourself that freedom. Give yourself that allowance of set yourself free.
Yeah. I love that. You hear me?
Kidding on, I'm frozen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was a big pause there. It was like, whoa.
It's sitting in the uncomfortable.
I think, see what you've just spoke about there, though, the whole, there's always room for everything else in your life, stop focusing on the shite. I think that's something that people, they get so caught up on the difficult parts of life that they actually forget about all the good that's going on, don't they?
It's that avoidance of pain and pursuit of pleasure, isn't it? It's easier to sit in the pain that's currently here. It's easier because it makes us, it gives us connection. Because if we are sitting in that avoidance of pain and we're all talking about how difficult life is, well, we've got significance, we've got connection, because everybody else is talking about it. And people say, well, how do you stop that though? How do you? And it is as simple as this one word: decide. Decide to not talk about it. Decide to not talk about people. Decide to not talk about the things that are so bad within life. And take that action. Create that leverage. Go that I cannot do this anymore. I cannot live in that state of thinking that life is so bad because I'm missing out on all the things that life has to offer. Mm-hmm. And it's as simple as that change. Change that perspective. Life is so bad, or life has so much to offer. What is it to say that it's life is short unless you're doing something that you don't love, and then life is really long. And I think life is really long if you're living a life where you hate it, you hate everybody, you hate yourself, because you don't hate anybody. We don't hate. That's not natural within us. We hate ourselves, and then we project that out, that mirror image that we spoke about. The only thing it's reflecting back is your perception of the world, nothing else. What you see in the world is only what you see within yourself.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because you'd said there, I feel like I'm picking up on the bits that people could perceive as negative, and I'm not, honestly, but...
Go for it. No, go for
it. You spoke there about speaking about people, and that is another thing that really, I just didn't understand it, because I am that person where, see, if you and I were sitting in a room and you were to say, oh, Stephen, see that person, I would be like, whoa, I'm not here to listen to that. If you've got an issue with that person, you go and deal with that. I don't want to talk about that person because they're not here. Yep. And I think when you find people speaking to you about other people, they are most definitely speaking about you to other people. 100%. So I think it's something that, again, like if I could help and inspire one person from our surgeries, then I talk about folk.
Yeah.
Like, if you hear it, call them out and say, go and deal with that. Go and speak to that person. Please don't speak to me about it, because that's not what I want to do. I don't want, because then when you get dragged into that, it pulls your energy down. It makes you feel crap.
Yeah.
And then see if someone has spoken to me about someone, I can't even look that person in the eyes without feeling guilty. I'm like, I heard that. I can't even look at you.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference, though, from somebody talking about somebody to somebody confiding in you when somebody's had a hardship done, or, if they're looking for advice, if they're looking for, there's a situation that they're looking to be guided on. That's different. Yeah. But if you're just talking about somebody for the sake of talking it, it's all about your transformational language. I think I spoke about it one of the first or second week. Change your language, you change your life. Because if you're constantly talking about people, talking negative about people, it generally is only a reflection of yourself. It's how you feel. Because if you're talking about somebody's success, but you're talking about it in a derogatory way, it's because you feel like you're lacking that success within yourself. So ask yourself the question, why do I feel that way about someone? Is it because I don't have enough? Is it because I feel that I should be getting more? Is it because I'm maybe a bit insecure or I'm unhappy or whatever? Because 9 times out of 10, I know you spoke the other week about the energy thing, but 9 times out of 10 when you're talking about someone else, it's just a lack of connection to something within yourself. You know, the concept of relationship is relating to someone else. And if you're not relating to them, it's not because they're not getting you, it's because you're not being got. You're in a position of standoff, of defense, of aggression, or whatever it may be. I think I spoke before about, if you go into work and you start picking up on somebody else's energy, of course that person might be having a bad day. But if you start going, they're a bit this, or they're a bit that, well, how are you responding to that? Because if that person is constantly being that way to you, you must be doing something to provoke that as well. It's not, there's their story, your story, and then there's the bit in the middle. And the bit in the middle is where we meet. It doesn't happen without everything. The power of the law of polarity, it has to come with an opposite in reaction to it. So if you're giving out, if you're getting it back, you're giving it out in some way as well.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I think I've shared this before, but I'm going to share it again. So, when I worked my full-time job, there was this lady in the office, right, in the admin office called Liz, right? And when I first started working in the office, the guys had said, "Stay away from Liz. She's crabbit." And she was crabbit, right? So I was feared there straight away because people had conditioned me to think like that. So every time I went in and the office was in Rutherglen, I would go in. Liz was from, people would always say, "Oh, she's for the rough party, Glasgow, she's for the Gorbals," right? So we would all be
like,
"The
Gorbals for here, there's a Gorbals across there."
So, but we would always be feared. It was crazy. So it was this perception of her. And she would sit every single lunchtime on her own at a table. Nobody would sit beside her because everybody was scared of her. And one day I had went over and I wanted to change that. So I went over and I was like, "Hi Liz, how are you? How's your day?" And she was, why are you speaking to me?" I was like, I just wanted to say hello. And she's like, "Okay, thanks, bye." So, and that was it. And then I was like, "No, I'm not going to give up on her." So I just kept doing wee things every single day just to make Liz feel good. And it was simple things like I would put, do you remember those little, oh God, I can't even remember what they're called. Is it a gold biscuit or they're like the gold biscuit?
Yep.
I would put a wee gold bar on her desk and, simple things like that. We post-it note here for your cup of tea. She would never refuse it. She would always take it. And then it got to the point where Liz didn't turn up for work one day and nobody knew why. And she came back to work and I'd went over and I sat beside her and I says, "Are you okay? You've not been here and I'm just a bit worried about you." And she broke down into tears. She got really upset and she'd said that like for the last 5-6 weeks that her husband had passed away. She'd been having a terrible time of it. And because nobody had really taken the time to understand Liz, they didn't know what she was going through. They didn't know the grief that she was going through. And they just perceived her to be an angry bugger when actually she wasn't. She was a really nice woman. When you actually got behind that.
That tough exterior.
Yeah. So I went down a bit of a leafy lane with that, but I think when someone's acting in a way that you don't understand, there's probably something going on behind that. There's probably some sort of pain that's going on with that person because nobody starts their day intentionally to be a dick.
No, not at all.
So,
but that subconscious mind is always creating these behaviours, and if that's keeping you safe, if that's keeping everybody else at arm's length, well, that tough exterior is serving its purpose. It might not be what she needs. Actually, what she needed was a Stephen to come into her life and give her a wee gold biscuit and give her your words of wisdom and your soothing tones. And she's probably coming for the Gorbals. She's probably never had that from her family. And that's maybe a bit of a generalisation. But actually, what was a generalisation was everybody telling you to stay away from Liz. She's really tough. She's really angry. She's really moody. Now that's a generalisation within an environment that happens all the time, all the time. And that's what we need to stop. We need to break down these prejudices that have been implanted on us. We need to get rid of all of this feeling that, oh, because they says it is true. Make up your own mind, standing your own 2 feet. And that's actually what it's all about. It's all about facing that fear, because who set out the parameters of what your belief system is? Did you sit down one day, Stephen, and say, right, okay, this is who I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I expect from people. Of course not. The majority of what your belief system is made up of was imprinted on you. In fact, 96 to 98% of it was imprinted on you. Only between 2 and 4% is conscious behaviour. So the other 96 to 98% is habitual, that's been passed on through your subconscious mind from external environment, from people telling you to stay away from Liz. So you're now going into another environment after you've left that job and you see another Liz who looks a wee angry woman.
Mm-hmm.
You respond the same way that you were told to respond in the past, because it's habitual. Keep away from her, stay safe, avoid her.
It's amazing how communication can be the biggest opener of doors and the biggest barrier on the planet. And I think if people just communicate with each other, if they just go in and ask, how are you?
Yep.
With that pace and that tone and that questions of kindness,
Yep.
It will absolutely change the world. And I think we all need to go back into the world mindful of other people and what they might be going through.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you another wee story, and people who have worked with me in the past will know this story, right? But when I worked for Greggs, we had this, and I worked for Greggs for 17 years, but we had this guy. So this guy was always late. Always late for work, right? And when you'd ask him, you'd be like, why are you late? He would be like, oh, I'm just late. So it got to the point where he was always late on a specific day. He'd been given chance after chance after chance, and it got to the point where he was being disciplined for it. And we sat there in that meeting room with the manager, area manager, and the personnel department. So we were all sitting there, and he was about to be dismissed. So I said, do you want to come outside for a quick coffee? Let's have a wee break. Come on, come outside for a wee coffee. And I just had a chat with him. And I said to him, I was like, they're going to dismiss you. So you need to tell me what's going on. And he burst into tears. And his wife, a year ago, from the date that he was going to be dismissed, had passed away, giving birth to their baby. And that guy had went through that whole year not telling anybody at work because he couldn't, because he just felt that then the work environment wasn't in the right place, because they would all speak about it, blah, blah, blah. And that day was the only day that he couldn't get childcare for his baby. But he kept that to the point where he was almost going to lose his job. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So the whole point that I'm trying to get across with this today is, when you guys are going back out there to work, be understanding with people, speak to people, be honest, and you never know what hell somebody could be going through behind their mind.
And I think be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I think if you're in that situation and you're really struggling and you're really in a position where the external factors are taking over, well, you need to be open and honest with others as well and say, look, this is where I'm at. Because we're all going to have to readjust. We're all going to have to show a bit of compassion and empathy for others. So don't be frightened to say, guys, I'm having a really struggling day. See, on a Monday, I just cannot get myself motivated. And remember, we put all these things on other people. Everything comes from a choice. Everything comes from deciding. If you choose to keep yourself tied down, if you choose to keep yourself restricted by your own thoughts, because that's all it is. That poor guy, my goodness, what hell he must have gone through. But could you imagine how much you could have just eased that burden slightly by him coming to you and say, this is a situation I'm in. On a Tuesday morning, I can't get childcare for my wee girl. You know, why? Not in the right mind would ever not give that kind of compassion and that level of consideration. And you would move mountains to make it work for that guy. But instead, he kept himself a prisoner in his own mind. It made life more difficult because he associated so much more pain with being open and honest and telling people what's actually happened than the actual situation itself.
I know, it's crazy, and you can put whatever cover you want on it or disguise it in any way you like, but many people will have many different situations that are very similar, where they feel that they can't be open and honest and they can't speak to people. People living in loveless romantic relationships that can't be open and honest. People that are living in toxic friendships. That one friend where they text you or they phone you, and I just don't understand it, but people are like, oh God, here they go again. I'm like, why have them in your life? Be honest and say, I have to tell you how you're making me feel.
Yep, 100%.
Talk about your feelings, know their feelings and what their actions are, but just say, I have to tell you how you're making me feel.
Yep. And if you're not confident within that to be able to say that, because a lot of people aren't confident, just make the decision to limit the chatter, limit the conversation, limit the connection. And then you maybe get to that point, you go, I'm strong enough now, because when we take on other people's energy, it does bring us down, it really does. But when you get to the point of you've built up your own energy source, and that's the most important thing, you're living on your own energy source, not someone else's. When you get to that point, you can't take much out of you. Then you get to the point of saying, do you know something? I really love you. I wish you well. We've moved on, whatever it may be. And then you can just cut ties with it. And it happens to us all. We're not the same person we were 10 years ago. And the majority of us don't have 90% of the same people we had 10 years ago in our life. It's not that we made a conscious decision one day to send a text message out, say, hi, listen, I have progressed so much in my life. I've decided you no longer serve me. Bye. But we'll just evolve past that point. But the people who we feel emotionally tied to, we're scared to let that emotional connection go. And you don't have to be scared. You just need to, again, decide to say, this is now the path I'm going on. I wish them nothing but well and all the love in the world, and send them on their way. Because not everybody's you, not everybody's me, not everyone. And actually, I don't feel as confident sending that message to somebody and say, you're really making me feel shit, and I actually am almost at the point of hating you. But now I realise that the issue is with me. The issue is with me. It's not with them, because everybody's out for themselves. Everybody's out to deal with their own things in life and talk about their own things in life and serve their own life, and that's absolutely fine. You just have to have people in your life that help serve the things that you need, and just accept the fact that you don't need to make connections with everybody.
No, I think going back to that as well, I would almost definitely every single time pick up the phone and speak to them, or I would say, can I meet you so we can have a wee chat? And they'd be like, oh my God, what do you want to chat to me about? I need to chat to you about how you're making me feel.
but then I think that puts added pressure onto the situation, because then somebody can come in with a defence, somebody can come in with, oh, well, what have I done? And then they're starting to create a lot of situations themselves. For me, and I've done this before, I would send an email or a letter and just say, Stephen, listen, I absolutely love you. We've had such a great relationship. Our lives have been together for the last 20 years and we've brought so much. But actually, your life's going on a different tangent. My life's in a different tangent. I think we should just kind of commit to this day and say bye to each other. We'll be, loving when we see one another. But that's as far as it goes now. Our relationship has evolved past that point that we're not in that same path anymore. We're going off in two different paths. And I wish you nothing but well and love and kindness in the world. If you don't feel confident and say, because I think, you're projecting something onto somebody else that they're doing something wrong, and they're not. No, remember, they're not doing something wrong. People are only working with the tools that they've been given, and they're only trying to do the best with the tools that they've been given. So sometimes your own needs, there's no need to then make other people feel insecure, inferior, upset, because then that conversation can spiral into them questioning, well, how am I with everybody else? Do I make everybody in my life feel, am I a bad person? Because they're not. You just don't have a connection anymore.
You're making me think. Because that's always the way that I've not that it's happened very often, but I've always spoke to people face, and it can usually always be resolved.
Yeah, I think it can be resolved if there's an issue that you want to resolve. If you want to cut somebody out your life, if you want to say that person no longer serves me, or what I get from that person doesn't serve me anymore, it's not that that person's a bad person. It's just what you're getting from them doesn't help you. It doesn't add to your journey. So I think it's just a bit of tact, isn't it? If it's a situation you think, I love that person, I want that person to be in my life, but they're upsetting me, well, that's a different situation. You're saying, we need a chat because what you said or what you done has upset me. But if you need to cut toxicity out of your life, if you need to cut somebody that is draining you, because we've all got drainers in our life, you need to find a way. And some people, it is just phasing them out. The messages get shorter, the frequency of them becomes longer in between them. And it might just be an email or a text at some point you have to say, I wish you well, listen, all the very best. My life is going in a different position now, or I just don't feel like what we had before, we now have now. And I wish you nothing but love and all the best in the world.
So well, that would devastate me.
Would it really?
I see getting an email, I would find that, like, I think this is the first time that we've ever actually been like, I agree. But honestly, I would read that email and I would be like,
what's doing that though?
The life would drain out my body. I think because the way that I'm perceiving that is that that's came out of the blue.
But it wouldn't have come out of the blue if you're messaging, if you've got a good pal, right, and you're messaging them time and time again, and the frequency of these messages get few and far between, and then the responses are shorter, and you go, something different, something's changed. Again, it doesn't just happen one way. Whatever you're projecting, that other person is receiving. So they start to, they'll feel the disconnect, they'll feel that something's changing. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has to email them. I'm just saying there's different ways. Because certainly for me to say, we need to have a chat. We need to have a chat about how you make me feel. And then say, I don't want you in my life. I don't think that's a good setup. You know, that's making, again, it's making that personally. I don't think that's a good setup. But to have a conversation and say, listen, I wish you well if you feel confident to do that. That's very powerful. That's very empowering for you. But how does that then make that other person feel as well?
Yeah.
Because that's rejection. That's really rejecting somebody. But if you can put it in words, if you can verbalize it, or if you can articulate it in a way that does make that person feel like, my life is just different now. My life is going off in a different tangent. I really wish you all the love in the world and all the success in the world. But I think we just cut ties here because we're both aware that the relationship's changed, the relationship's frayed, and thanks for everything.
Yeah. I think doing it in whatever way you feel comfortable is most
100%,
important, isn't it?
100%.
The way that I do it with real empathy and understanding. So I've actually got would you believe it? It comes so naturally to me, right? I actually created, and it's part of all my courses, but I've actually created a way in which we speak to people, which is really interesting. I'm not going to share it.
What, like elfish or something like that?
Say that again?
Like elfish or something like that?
Like elfish?
A way to speak to people in elf language or something?
No. It's just it's a technique that I like to teach people. And what then happens with that is that people really begin to understand how to have conversations with people.
Right.
And it's been really helpful. Anybody who's ever been part of any of our courses, let me know in the comments if you found it helpful. But I would do it like this. So I would say, James, I need to talk to you.
What about?
Last week when you said, like, just play along, right? Last week when you'd said about pickles being in jars.
Mm-hmm. What's wrong with that?
That really upset me.
But I was only speaking the truth. Pickles are always in jars.
I know, but no for me. I buy pickles in plastic containers.
Well, you're an exception to the rule again, Stephen. Pickles are in jars for the majority of us. I've always been brought up with pickles in the jars in the fridge.
I love you, James, but I feel that you're being a wee bit sharp with me now.
I feel like you're being quite condescending with me, Stephen, over pickles.
Fuck off, James! I don't mean it, but I would naturally people would be like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you," and I'd be like, "That's all right," and then we would talk about it, and it would just end up really, really nice. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. For me, though, genuinely, I would be like, I cannot fucking believe he's pulling me up for the fact that I said pickles and jars a week ago now.
I would probably say it at the time, though, and I think that's the key thing. So when I feel something that doesn't feel right, I'll say, well, James, I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah. So I'm exactly the same as you, Stephen. I would instantly stop you. I am totally open to challenging someone's way of thought. As equally, I'm also open to challenging my own way of thought. So I would never go in and say, Stephen, you said pickles are in jars. No, in my house, I know they're in plastic containers. I would say, Stephen, do you know that's funny you said that? It kind of offended me because I've never seen pickles in a jar before. I'll never get pickles in a plastic container. But I suppose not everybody has that direct approach, and also that transformational language and how you approach it. Because if you approach it from an angry state, if you come in, you go, pickles are in jars, right? I'm telling you, they're no. Well, you're instantly going in with an aggression. But as equal, if you go, you said to me pickles are in jars, I would be like, you're condescending the living hell out of me, and I'm going to smack you right in the face with a pickle. So I think that the language that we use is absolutely so important. The body language that we use, the NLP model is all about the communication model. And to build rapport with somebody, for instance, like, you're sitting chatting just now, well, I can instantly mimic you and I can make that connection. And I can, focus on your blink rate, and I can really start to look at what's Stephen doing. Because we look for in others what we see in ourselves.
You're supposed to mimic me. Come on. Sorry.
So it's getting to that place of, for me in the salon, right? I love the salon environment because it's a great way to observe people. I mean, I started doing NLP and I realized, shit, this stuff really works. Because all it is you're trying to relate to someone else and you're not trying to get someone else to relate to you. If wee Liz, right? Let's take wee Liz, for instance. Now, if you went in with wee Liz and you were very, hi, Liz. Can we talk about pickles and jars, Liz? She's never had somebody in the Gorbals speak to her like that. She's probably had a jar of pickles put through her window at one point, never mind somebody discussing it. But if you come from a place of not aggression, but mirror and match how she speaks, how her, her personality comes across, how her face, if you're like that, hiya, she doesn't get that. That's alien to somebody like that. But if you can assess whether somebody is a visual orientated person, an auditory orientated person, a kinesthetic, I'm very kinesthetic, as you can see, I'm always using my hands. When somebody talks to me like that, I get it. I get excited. I'm like, If somebody sits and they go, yep, got it. It frustrates me because that's an auditory digital person. I can't cope with that because I'm about detail. I'm about expansion and story. I'm all about pictures. I'm always up here. Sometimes I'll go auditory because I'll think about how it sounded. But if you hear what I'm saying, I'm always talking about the thinking, the feeling. Do you know what I think? Now, from an NLP, I shouldn't be doing that because it's not about what I think. That's the story I'm telling myself. But that is where you then start to mirror and match that person. Same with your breathing pattern. Somebody will always breathe out and once they've stopped speaking. Sorry, always breathe in once they've stopped speaking. So if somebody's talking and you can match your breathe rate. So I'm holding my breath just now. I'll breathe out. I'm breathing in. If I can hold my breath in that, straight away it changes my physiology. So I'm matching that person and how they speak. So when I do a consultation in the salon, I don't stand behind them in the mirror. I come to the side of them so I can look at them and I can mirror and match them and I can do a head tilt. I get it. What? Right, okay. And then you then build that rapport instantly. So it doesn't matter what you say because the language is not important. It's everything else that's important. So again, thinking about those conflicts that you may have with someone, if you go in with a stance and if you go in with the head forward and you're ready for a fight, it's like two dogs meeting face to face. They know what that means. It's instinctive within them. I have to prepare myself. I have to, because again, information scanned through the frontal cortex into the amygdala, scanned for fight or flight. So what do? We have to respond in a way that matches that. But if you come and you're, oh, Stephen, you're so lovely, Stephen. You're such a nice guy. Do you know that? And by the way, it's not about going, what are they doing? And you start doing, it's just keep it really natural. So you see somebody doing something, and then you then just fall into that position of going, oh, God, I totally get that. Do you know, I was thinking the same. And it doesn't need to be this. It can just be, yeah.
You're making me really self-conscious. I'm sitting here like that. Where do I put my hands?
But it's the single most important part of every communication model that we have is the language is not always what we speak. Mm-hmm. It's 70% is everything else.
It's interesting because see, in person, right, I am if anybody who knows me, I'm very animated and I'm like, I'm all over the place. See, when I'm speaking here, I'm very like, and I don't mean to be, by the way. I try to be as animated as I can be. So,
well, I would say you're very animated, but you're also in a position of you're taking notes and you're also thinking about what the speaker's saying.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're naturally working on that communication model because you're writing things down and going, James, see when you said this, then you come back and that's when the real Stephen comes out. But when you're in this position of listening, well, you've got your listening voice on. You have to be more auditory. Now, you're a kinesthetic person. That's where all of this, wah! You have to be. You're all about energies. You're all about energies. You're all about emotion. You're all about feeling. Feeling has to come with movement. Emotion comes from energy and motion. So for you, a kinesthetic being has to have all of that momentum, has to have all that craziness. But I literally used to sit and watch TV, Stephen, and I've told you before about the feeling sick and tired of being sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. And I used to lie, and Kenny would be like tapping his feet and he would be playing whatever and he would be moving about. And I was like, going to you sit at peace. Please sit at peace. But I was focused so much on the negative thought. I was focused on that state of being sick and tired. Tiredness can't come from energy. Mm-hmm. Tiredness comes from using up all your energy. But I wasn't using up all my energy. I was already running on empty. Whereas now I'm like, I've got that momentum, I've got that motion because I focus on what is the true authentic state, that beautiful state that I choose to live in. And remember, it's always a choice. It's always a choice. And it's always a natural state. We were born innately well. We were born being happy. We were born being joyful. Everything else was learned. So if you're in a situation just now and you're thinking, I don't know how to be happy again, I've lost, just choose. Now, I'm not saying that's going to change it overnight, but choose to make a conscious decision to be happier, to do things that make you happy, to be a bit more joyful and a wee bit, I always say choose joy over anything. It's the most important thing in life because life is joyful. Living, if you're breathing, it's the most important part. Mm-hmm. So it's the choice and make that decision in the moment.
It's interesting what you said about hairdressers as well, just to go off on a bit of a tangent with that. A lot of hairdressers, like if I was to go to a barber and have my hair cut, they would stand behind me and be like, what do you want? Whereas I've never ever had someone like sit in front of me and say, so what is it we're doing for you today?
It's asking different questions. The question I ask all my clients is, talk to me. Now that talk to me might actually come from a place of, they'll then be like, well, wee Johnny fell down the stairs and see my Kirsty, she's been in the hospital and my dog get put down last night. That might go off a different tangent, but I can very quickly then rein that in because I want that client to build rapport. I have connections with people. I don't have clients. I have relationships with people. I know more about their family than what a lot of their family does about them. I know more about their emotional state than what the doctor knows about them because that's the relationship that I want to get. That's the trust. I always say that you don't need to be the best hairdresser in the world to have the biggest clientele base. You don't have to be the best barber in the world to have the biggest clientele base or the most loyal clientele. It doesn't matter what you are in life. People will only remember how you make them feel, not the words that you said. That's the most important thing, is how you leave people feeling. And my goal is always, my agenda with my hairdressing and with coaching is, I want people just to simply leave feeling better than what they were when they come in to see me, in whatever capacity. Even if I'm not feeling it.
Yeah. You always make me feel more uplifted than, you're not my hairdresser, but we have loads of chats. We always, you know, obviously soul man surgeries, but we also talk out with that as well. And you know, you always make me feel really uplifted. You know, if I'm feeling a wee bit down, you're like, right, hen, come on. And I'm like, stop calling me hen.
But it changes your physiology. It changes your state because it instantly, whether it's rage, whether it's anger, it's coming from a place of annoyance and joy and all that kind of stuff. And it's all about changing your physiology in that moment. A couple of weeks ago, you and I both had a bit of a flat day. Mm-hmm. And we were aware of it. It wasn't that it impacted the relationship that we had, and it wasn't that it made the soul man surgery any less impactful or joyful for us. In fact, one of the ones we had one week was a week that I was like so underprepared. I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about here. And you came off, and I came off, and I was like, I don't know what I spoke about. That was a lot of nonsense. And you messaged me, says, I absolutely loved today. That was brilliant. Yeah. Because it was a conversation. And it was the relationship that you and I had that was great. And I think the comments we had actually that day were really good. They were really fun. They were really, you know, people get from it what you give. Mm-hmm. So really make that decision to change. What am I giving to others and what am I giving to myself? It's so important.
Yeah. It's the same in our shop. You know, when we've got customers coming in, we get a lot of people coming in and they go, no telling you anything. And we're like, this isn't how this works. You know, how this works is, you know, you need to communicate with us. You need to tell us. You need to allow us to work with your energy. Because if you're like that, you're closed. And people get so much more when they just open up to stuff rather than being closed and grumpy and.
Well, that's the communication model in life. So the ironic thing is it's the communication model between spirit and life. It's also the communication model between life. Open up. Accept that people will warm to you when you're warmer to them. You know, with this stance, well, what does it suggest? It suggests don't come near me. I'm wee Liz for the Gorbos. But actually, all I want to do is relax my shoulders, open my arms, and probably cuddle somebody.
Yeah.
And that changes everything. In the salon, I love the fact that I know so many clients that are not even my clients even because I still make that welcome feel to clients that come into the salon. As much as I'm the manager, but even in previous places, it's not about asserting your authority. It's about making connections that people feel amazing from. You never know what somebody's shoes are, what shoes somebody's walking in. You never know what the journey they've came from. I think if we can be a wee bit kinder to ourselves, we automatically want to give that out. But please, transformational language is such an important part, guys, for everybody. Really think about the choice words that you use and how much they have an impact on not just you, but your environment around about you, your partner. And if you want to change the relationships you have with people, start to change the relationships that you have with yourself. And again, it comes from just deciding. Create enough leverage, and that leverage comes with the avoidance of pain or the pursuit of pleasure. If you're in the position where you're thinking, I can't do this anymore, think about if I continue to do it for the next 5 years with this pain attachment, how am I going to be in that 5 year stage? How am I going to be in a year stage actually? Because if it's really bad and there's a lot of suffering involved in it, where will I be in 5 years' time? Then say, where will I be if I give up that pain and I go in the pursuit of pleasure? If I ask myself better questions, if I talk better to myself, if I have better relationships with people, it's endless. It's absolutely endless because it changes and gets our beliefs and our values in balance.
Absolutely. What a lovely way to end. I think I'm just going to leave that there because I actually want to go blah, 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 but I'm not going to. I think that I'm going to leave those lasting words that James has given you guys there and go away and think about that. What are you in the pursuit of, pain or happiness?
Yep.
And if you need to, like rewind this and listen to that last minute that James spoke there. So, Mr. Hughes, that's the last surgery with you. James is going to be back though, because we've already kind of hinted at it, but I think everybody knows that James is going to be back in a different way, in a different form, when his working life settles back into some sort of routine. I would love to have James and Nicola, actually, both of you, if not both of you separately or whatever, over at the shop, to do a little motivational workshop or a motivational day at the shop. So that's definitely something that is coming, whether he likes it or no.
Stephen, I am honestly so excited for the future, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you for all that you have done for not just me, but for everybody that's been listening every week, for all the guests that you have on a daily basis. You've inspired and motivated me. You've instilled so much self-belief in me in the last 3 months that I cannot tell you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you've done. Really mean it. You're a wonderful, wonderful guy. And anybody who's listening, anybody who connects with you, you're an absolute asset to them. You're a credit, really genuinely credit to this earth. Because I wish there was more people like you.
Uh-huh.
I mean that.
I'm joking.
I mean that.
I was just doing that.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, James. That's really, really kind, honestly. But like I say, it comes naturally to me. I think that's the important thing. If there was more people on the planet like that, then the planet would be a better place. And I think if I can inspire people and help people through the work that I do, then everybody communicates better. People have a better time here on this planet. And then they don't get to the point where they're entering the spirit world and they're regretting the things that they've said and done in life. So, and before we go as well, I just want to say a huge big thank you as well, because equally, I've found our conversations utterly inspiring. I have found, I think you're one of the people that I have spoke to across the many people that I've spoke to who just gets it. You just get life, and you've got lived experience of pain, and you've got lived experience of all these things. You didn't come to the table pretending that you know it all. You're just honest and you're you, and I think that you should be really proud of that, because I don't think you quite understand how many people you've touched. And I mean, I don't mean that in a rude way.
Okay.
Because Louise, I'd actually seen this at the very beginning, and I was trying not to laugh because you were having a serious conversation. And Louise had posted at the start there, which was really funny. I think it's a good way to end. I can't find it now. Morning, a week of happy endings.
All right, Louise, a week of them? God almighty.
So yeah, it's been a roller coaster for me this week though, because we've had lots of people graduating from the Soulman Academy. So like we've had all these graduation ceremonies, and I'm just like, oh, these folk are leaving me.
But how exciting to think there's so much more coming.
I know, I know. It's been great. But James, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Stephen. Thank you.
All of you, please do let James know. Keep commenting and just let James know how much he's inspired you, because I know that you've inspired many. So thank you, James.
Thank you to everybody. I really appreciate it.
Are you hanging on for 2 minutes?
Yes.
Cool. So I'm just going to roll the credits or the titles and let you all go. So I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we've got a new guest on. So
who has it, Beyonce?
No, it was meant to be Lady Gaga last Thursday, but it turned out to be me.
I can't believe I actually fell for that. There was a split moment where I was like, is he actually connected with it? And then I started to really commute it in my mind. I'm going, maybe it's the energy. Maybe it was that person who used to spoke to any LA's passed their number on.
It's funny because when we came off the live last week, James was like, you're fucking at it. Anyway. Take care, everybody, and we will see. Well, we'll not see you next week, James, but we'll see you when we see you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Now I can't get it to go. There we go.